So good evening to everyone on the East Coast. I'd like to welcome you all to our second part of the AirSync webinars. Today we'll be talking about connecting your electronic pilot logbook with AirSync, importing flights, filling them out automatically, and getting the data into your personal pilot logbook from AirSync. I appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon and evening. For those that are in Europe that express interest in this is being recorded and will be available online afterwards. So to get started, we'll go through a quick agenda. Getting started this evening, we're going to look at just a quick overview to AirSync. We will then look at integrating with using Log10 Pro. Log10 Pro is a professional pilot logbook a lot of pro pilots use. We'll then look at Forflight logbook, which probably everyone here is at least familiar with, and then some information on how you can get AirSync for your aircraft, followed by open question and answers. If you have any questions about the actual tutorial work we're doing, getting Log10 Pro or Forflight logbook set up during this presentation, feel free to chat and send that over in the Q&As. We'll try to get to them live if it's relevant for what we're doing. Otherwise, we'll save it for the end of the Q&A session. So as a quick overview to AirSync, we had our part 1, What is AirSync webinar last week. So if you're not familiar with AirSync, not familiar with how we connect into your aircraft, pull data off your plane, and make your life and ownership experience simpler, encourage you to check out the part 1, What is AirSync webinar. It's available at air-sync.com. Towards the top, you can just play that on demand. And just to recap what we did talk about in our last webinar, AirSync is really focused on situational awareness, automation, and having your plane always connected. We are in the 21st century, and what we're trying to bring is the 21st century experience to the aircraft. Many aircraft come equipped with lots of technology, but there often seems to be a lot of paper involved in the whole equation. So whether you're a personal pilot or an operator or professional pilot, there's a lot of paper in the equation these days that AirSync is helping remove and streamline your operations, making things simpler, making things more cost effective. So to get started this evening, have a capabilities overview. It's not completely exhaustive, but shows a lot of the capabilities of AirSync. This is going to be our template going forward for additional webinars, starting to look at individual capabilities, breaking them out and actually going through the tutorials, showing you how they work and explaining them in further detail. What we've done here is we've divided capabilities into pilot sections and organization sections. So these capabilities very pilot focused, these capabilities very organizational focused, and then obviously the bulk here in the middle focused on both pilot and organization. For today, we're going to be looking at the pilot logbook integration. All right, so we'll get started with Log10 Pro. Just a little background on Log10 Pro. As we said before, Log10 Pro is a pro pilot logbook. It's used a lot of the airline captains, professional pilots, charter operators, etc. Log10 Pro has a lot of graphing and currency capabilities that are very useful in the space, and has a simple API, a simple integration for us to use with allowing you to upload your flights to the Log10 Pro app, either in the iOS app or on the PC Mac. So to get started, we're going to log into AirSync. All right, so on AirSync, we have our homepage and intro page. We have a list of recent flights that we've taken, most recent flight here being at the top. You'll notice that there is a Add to Log 10 Pro button available. By default, the Log 10 Pro button is available for every single flight that you've taken in an aircraft. What we'd like to do is kind of go through how this actually works, how you set things up and configure it if you had changed this setting. So to get started with, the personal pilot logbook focuses on the individual AirSync user as opposed to the organization or the aircraft. So when we want to play with settings with the personal pilot logbook, we're going to go to settings in the top right corner of the screen. These settings are for your individual. So for instance, I can change my password, I can update my email address, and in this case, I can go to logbook. So you'll see that we've set our setting currently for Log 10 Pro. This is the default setting. If you create a new AirSync account, your default setting will be Log 10 Pro. If it wasn't, I can click it and hit update to enable Log 10 Pro. So if we go back to an individual flight, we can click Add to Log 10 Pro to have this flight added to our logbook. We get a little prompt here on the web, allow, and this is going to open up the Log 10 Pro app. So what I'll do is I'll switch that over here. Okay, so we should be looking at the Log 10 Pro app now on the Mac in this case. And now the question is, would I like to add one flight from AirSync? And I'm going to click yes. So now we can see that we've added a flight on the date, in this case, way back in 2018. We have the total time, the aircraft tail number, type, origin, destination, and additional information regarding fuel burn, off, on, in, and out, the Hobbs time and the tack time, or in this case, the flight time. So this flight has now been added to Log 10 Pro on the Mac. So now what we'd like to do, while this capability is useful for many, it probably is not exactly what you were looking for simplicity and ease of use if you just got out of your plane. So now we'll show using the Log 10 Pro capability on your iPhone. All right. So if we've just landed in our aircraft that is equipped with AirSync, we'll get a notification at the top of our screen notifying us that the aircraft has arrived at the airport that we're at. Clicking this notification would take us directly into the flight that we just took. So what we'll do in this case is, since we don't have a notification, we'll open the AirSync app. We can see our fleet here. In this case, it's the same SR-22 demo that we've been looking at. We can click that, and then we can click in the bottom, the airplane, to bring up a list of flights. So in this case, let's pretend that the flight here on July 20th, 2018 is the one in question. And you'll notice here that we'd prepped for this demo and actually did something a little bit different. So you notice here it says add to Forflight logbook. That's because we changed the setting in the background and didn't allow the app to refresh. So what we're actually going to do is log out and log back in. Okay, so now that we've logged back in the current settings that we set on the web will be available to us. So we can go back to the flight that we were just looking at, and you'll see that we have the button Add to Log 10 Pro. So if we click that button, assuming we have Log 10 Pro installed on our iPhone, we'll be given the option to import that flight. Now, in this case, this flight actually goes back pretty far into 2018, but now we can see this right here at the bottom of the screen, and the flight is imported into our logbook. So this can be done immediately after we land, before we've even put away the plane or packed up the plane, get the logbook entry complete, and we're good to go. All right, now we're going to jump back to the web, and we're going to take a look at Forflight Logbook. Okay, so we're back in the web. Let's assume that this is a new account. We've been set up with Log 10 Pro, as we talked about, as the default logbook, but now we want to use Forflight. So Forflight, as a background, is a great pilot preparation tool. It's been around for about 10 years, and recently, in the past couple years, Forflight added logbook capabilities to the app. So if we go to Settings and go to Logbook, we now have the option to enable Forflight Logbook as our personal logbook. So let's go ahead and try to do that right now. And you'll notice that it says Forflight must be authorized to add as your personal pilot logbook. So what happens with Forflight is we need to actually authorize our online account and AirSync to talk to each other. So we can do that here with Authorize Forflight. When we click Authorize Forflight, AirSync will take us to Forflight. We can actually check our certificates up here, indicating that we actually are at forflight.com. We can now use our Forflight credentials to log in. And just to repeat, these are our Forflight credentials. So these credentials have nothing to do with AirSync. And we'll log in. All right, once we've logged in, Forflight may ask us if we wish to authorize AirSync and Forflight to talk. In that case, click yes, and then you'll immediately be taken back to the AirSync web service. Under our personal pilot logbook, we can now click Forflight, and we can click Update. And you'll notice now it says the pilot logbook has been successfully set as Forflight. So if we go back to AirSync in the top left, we can see our flights now. And now we can see that Forflight is the logbook of choice. Realistically, we realize that most users have one logbook or the other, and probably once they're all set with one electronic logbook, likely will not change to another one. So we see this as a setting that you'll likely do once, and then keep it as is for this foreseeable future. But in this case, we can do the same thing we did with Log 10 Pro. If we have a flight that we want to add to our Forflight logbook, we can click Add to Forflight Logbook. So in this case, we're going to add that first flight on July 21st. And you'll notice it says the flight has been successfully added to Forflight Logbook. In this case, Forflight is not linked to AirSync via the app like Log 10 Pro is, but the servers actually talk to each other. So the AirSync server talks to the Forflight server, and AirSync lets Forflight know, here's a new flight associated with the user that had logged in. So once AirSync tells us that the flight has been added to Forflight Logbook, we don't get another interface to see anything in another app. Now, if we want to see the flight in Forflight, we can go ahead and do that on our phone or iOS device. So we'll bring up our phone again. All right. Okay. So Forflight has been, this flight on the 21st has been added to our Forflight logbook, and we can go to Forflight. And we can now see that the flight on the 21st has been added as a draft, and we can see that it was imported from AirSync. So if we now go into that, we can approve this draft, and that flight has been added to our logbook. Now, one feature that we're excited to announce just today, we just added by popular request. Users wanted to have more information submitted to their Forflight logbook. Up until today, we could import the aircraft tail number and type, the date from and to, origin destination, and the time en route. We can now have AirSync import the Hobbs start and end time and the tax start and end time. So this is a new capability that is available today. So if you start adding flights going forward using this interface, you'll be able to do this. All right, so again, we use the web interface to add a flight to Forflight logbook. Again, the web interface is probably not what the pilot wants to use getting out of the plane, wishing to close out the flight. As soon as they've landed, close out the flight and close out their entries for the day. So to do this from the app, we are going to go back into the AirSync app, and you'll notice that we have Add to Log 10 Pro. So this is what we saw earlier in this demo. We do need to log out of the app if we've made a change to our logbook configuration and log back in. All right, so our flights are now available. And in this case, let's go to the flight on the 20th. And you can see at the top, it says Add to Forflight Logbook. So if we click Add to Forflight Logbook, we'll get a notification that the flight has been successfully added to our Forflight Logbook. And if we head over to our Forflight Logbook, we can see we have a new draft on July 20th from, in this case, Leesburg to Leesburg. So we can click on that draft and click Approve. So in this second part here, we just demonstrated adding a AirSync flight to Forflight Logbook, having all that data that you see here pre-populated directly from the app after you land. No need to go to the web once you've configured Forflight Logbook as your personal pilot logbook. All right. Okay, and let's go back. Okay, so just as a little overview to getting set up with AirSync, if you don't already have AirSync for your aircraft, AirSync is a capability tied to the aircraft. It's not tied to the pilot, but instead tied to the aircraft. So AirSync as a hardware installation for Garmin platforms comes as a two-piece kit. We have a bridge, which is the black box you see here. And we have an SD card, which plugs into the G1000, G3000, G3X or similar panel, plugs into the MFD. We're also very excited to say that coming soon, we'll have some support for new platforms. So excited to tease that, and looking forward to making the announcement on that shortly. AirSync is compatible with a aircraft from a whole number of OEMs, from Beechcraft, Cessna, Cirrus, Daher, Diamond, HondaJet, Piper, Tecnam, Vans. So whether you're in a jet, a turboprop, or all the way down into the LSA space, we do have compatibility and coverage for you as far as AirSync goes. We are adding new platforms all the time. So if your aircraft, if you believe you'd like to see AirSync in your aircraft and we don't have support advertised for it today, just send us an email at sales@air-sync.com. We'd be happy to add that if we're able to. So how do I get AirSync? If you don't have AirSync, or you're new to AirSync, you've seen this webinar this evening and would like to try this out for your aircraft, we do offer a free 30-day trial. You can sign up at www.air-sync.com/free trial, or if you just go to air-sync.com, at the top you'll see a banner for free trial. Go ahead there and register for the free trial, and we'll get you out a system free of charge and something you can evaluate for 30 days. All right, and now moving on to the Q&A. Feel free to ask any questions related to this topic, or even slightly off. If you have questions for upcoming webinars or whatnot that you'd like to look at, we'd be very interested in hearing what you'd like to see. All right, so we have one question about adding the off, on, and I'm assuming out and in times for logbook entries in Forflight. So the users noted that Log 10 Pro, AirSync will update the off, on, out, and in times and automatically add those to logbook entries in Log 10 Pro, but Forflight does not have this capability today. So we do not have that capability today, but we are actively working on some updates, additional updates beyond what we released today to Forflight, and we're excited to see that rolled out. So as soon as we have those, we'll make an announcement to that effect and what capabilities, but I do believe that what you're looking for will be coming shortly. So I appreciate the question there, appreciate the capability that you're looking for there. I do know that other users have asked, can we have flight tracks and other such information that is collected from the Garmin through AirSync pushed into Forflight as well. So again, another set of features that we are actively working on and plan to make available shortly. All right. Also have a question about additional logbooks. So Forflight and Log 10 Pro are two very popular logbooks, but there are some other logbook applications that are popular in this space. We do have the capability to integrate with additional logbook applications. If you would like to see something, let us know what logbook you would like us to add. We'd be happy to look at that. In the big fancy computer technical terms, these logbook applications need something called an API that allows AirSync to talk to them so that we can transfer the information from AirSync into that logbook. So if this logbook application that you're looking for that we don't currently offer today has an API, there's a good chance that we can add support for that. So we'd be happy to do so. All right, we have another question about having flights automatically entered into your logbook. So once your logbook is configured in AirSync, whether it's Forflight or Log 10 Pro, can you have flights automatically entered into your logbook without having to click in the app or on the web? It's a good question, and certainly a very useful feature, simplifying things and streamlining things. The question here being understanding of who the pilot is. So a lot of aircraft are shared by multiple people, in which case you obviously wouldn't want John or Jim's flight added to your personal logbook. So that whether that's a shared aircraft or a flight school aircraft or something like that. So one thing that we are looking at is the option to say that, hey, I'm the only user of this aircraft, I'm a sole owner of this plane, and I'd just like every flight from this plane added to my logbook. We are looking at that, and that is something that we think could be available shortly. And in addition to this, one of the other features and capabilities that we are investigating is adding flights, importing data from a scheduling software. So if AirSync is talking with your scheduling service for scheduling reservations on the aircraft, knowing that you are the pilot of that aircraft, using that information to then automatically add the flight to your logbook if you've elected to enable that feature. So along this line, these are some features and capabilities that we are investigating, and we look forward to being able to roll out new capabilities like this in the future. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for this evening. Very much appreciate everyone's attendance this evening. Appreciate you jumping on board and learning a little bit more about AirSync and the capabilities that that we offer with respect to integrating with your personal pilot logbook. We'll be continuing this webinar series looking at other features of AirSync, how to configure things from importing users and integrations with scheduling tools like Log10 Pro, to uploading your flights to Cloud Ahoy and getting alerts and notifications if there are any maintenance issues that may need to be done. So the whole plethora of features and capabilities that we looked at earlier in this presentation, we'll continue to delve into these in further detail and help explain how to get things configured and set up for the AirSync user. So again, appreciate your attendance this evening, and if you'd like to try AirSync out as a new user, www.air-sync.com, and click at the banner at the top for a free trial. Thank you.